Now today we're going to do the Aggañña Sutta, D27. This is quite a long sutta. It's actually a humorous text. We can see the Buddha using very subtle humor. And it's a very beautiful, a very funny text, unlike any other. It's a long story, and yet it's a very, shall we say, almost like a revolutionary lesson even on society, human behavior. This is an example of a sutta which is based on what we call in literature the metaphor. The whole sutta, or the bulk of the sutta, is really a metaphor. The metaphor is a way of talking using symbolic language, symbols, stories, and so on. For example, it's very similar to a simile. Okay? A simile is something like we say, he fought like a lion. Like a lion, that is a simile. It is similar. Okay? But if you say he is a lion in a fight, he was a lion in a fight, that becomes a metaphor. So here the Buddha is telling the story of how the whole universe re-evolved, started again, and how the beings, how human beings came to being and society and so on. In a sense, in great detail. And all this the Buddha is telling to answer, or rather to correct the wrong views of the brahmins who were attacking these two young monks who are brahmins for joining the Buddhist Sangha. Okay, so remember, when you are looking at this text, it is a very powerful story with very deep meanings which we should discover. It is not a science. It is not about the what do you call it, pulsating universe or anything like that. Although these ideas are used, this is a story with a very powerful Dharma lesson. All right. So here we are, Aggañña Sutta. Agga means foremost, the main one, the key, and then ña. Ña or Añña means knowledge. Okay. The foremost knowledge, the main idea we should know to be free. Sutta means teaching, it means a thread that goes back to the Buddha's time, to the Buddha himself. Second line is the translation, the discourse on the foremost knowledge, D27, Digha Nikaya, Sutta 27. This sutta is so well known, so you find there are at least 4 Chinese translations. DA5, DA is Digha Agama, a long collection. And then T10, another Chinese translation. And then MA154, Madhyama Agama, this is the middle length Chinese version, number 154. And then the Ekottara Agama 40.1. This Ekottara here is the Chinese Anguttara version. Okay. And there's also some Sanskrit fragments discovered in Central Asia by the Germans, edited by Waldschmidt in 1970. Right, so we have quite a lot of sources here. So if someone asks you what is the sutta about, and that's the theme. The theme is on the origin or evolution of the world, society, and universal values. Okay. So let's look at the sutta now. Okay, turn to like 18 pages later. Page 160. Aggañña Sutta, the discourse on the foremost knowledge, D27. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying at the mansion, or in the mansion of Megara's mother in Eastern Park, near Savatthi, on the eastern side of Savatthi. Right? At that time, Vāseṭṭha and Bhāra, aspiring for monkhood, were living as probationary monks. Right, so here the story begins with these 2 young brahmins who were inspired by the Buddha they are young Brahmins. These are their family names, right? Like Tan, Lim, Vāseṭṭha. In Sanskrit is Vasistha. And then the Bharadwaja is the same, Pali and Sanskrit. Both these names are still exist in India today. In fact, I have a couple of Indian friends who belong to the Bharadwaja Gotra, the Bharadwaja clan, if you like. You don't see them using these names, these words in their names, because it's more like a clan. But it's quite surprising to actually, I was very happy to know that there are some Bharadwajas that I've met. And so they decided to become monks. But then they were Brahmins. So Brahmins have lots of views and ideas. So they have to spend like 4 months as probationary monks to make sure that they are ready to practice the Dharma, that they would not let their old ideas, the Brahmin ideas, to intrude into their monk life. Okay, so these two young friends, they met together, and let's see what happens. 1.3. Then one evening, the Blessed One emerged from his solitary meditation. Right? So here the Buddha would meditate sundown and sun up. Okay, so this is the sundown part. So he's just come out of his meditation retreat, and then he came down from the mansion. The mansion is quite kind of built slightly above the ground, and walked up and down. So this is where the Buddha does his daily exercise. So you find that those early monks still exercise a lot by walking, and they go on alms round. That walking is also a kind of exercise, not just collecting fruit. So that's how the monks remain healthy, by doing walking exercise. So the Buddha was walking up and down in a mansion's shed in the open air. Paragraph 2. Vāseṭṭha saw that the Blessed One had emerged from his solitary meditation, and the Buddha was walking up and down. Right. So again, if you notice the words are in italics, it means it is a repetition of the earlier passage. Seeing the Blessed One, he addressed Bharadwaja. So they're good friends, are together. So Vāseṭṭha said to Bharadwaja, Avuso Bharadwaja. Avuso is like brother, friend, a term used for someone of the same level, more or less. Avuso Bharadwaja, the Blessed One has emerged from his solitary meditation, and here he is walking up and down. Come, Avuso, let us go to him. Perhaps we may get a chance to hear a Dharma talk from the Blessed One himself. All right, Avuso, Bharadwaja replied, in essence, to Vāseṭṭha. Then Vāseṭṭha and Bharadwaja went up to the Blessed One, and having gone up to him and greeted him, they walked up and down together with him. So this is very interesting. So we have to imagine here, this whole story, this whole long sutta, is given when the Buddha is walking up and down with these two young monks. Okay, but they're walking very slowly, mindfully. Right. So the Buddha begin by asking these two young monks. Section 3. No? He asks, Vāseṭṭha, you are Brahmins by birth, from good Brahmin families, but you have gone forth from a Brahmin family, from the household into homelessness. Surely, Vāseṭṭha, Brahmins must have reviled and abused you, right? So the Buddha is asking after these two young monks to be. Now, notice first of all, the name Vāseṭṭha is plural. There is a macron. We call it the line above the A. It's called a macron. In other words, a macron is big. It makes the letter A into a long vowel. If you know music, we say 2 counts. Ah. The normal short vowel will be 1 count. It's 2 counts. Vāseṭṭha. Now this is unusual. In fact, this is kind of unique to Indian languages. Okay, Vāseṭṭha translates as Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvaja. So there are two of them, but Vāseṭṭha is the senior one, so the Buddha only, instead of saying Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvaja, you just say Vāseṭṭha. Okay? If you translate literally, it will be something like Vāseṭṭhas with an S, okay? It doesn't work in English. So Vāseṭṭha is the plural, it includes Bhāradvaja also. You say, well, you know, you're Brahmins and you have become monks, so the other Brahmins must have been quite unhappy with you. They must have scolded you, right? So the two young Brahmins replied, 3.2, indeed, Bhante, Brahmins revile and abuse us roundly in a downright personal way. Then the Buddha asked, how was it? How did the Brahmins revile and abuse you roundly in a downright personal way? Bhante, the Brahmins say, only the Brahmin is the best class. Any other class is inferior. Right? So they have this caste system. Even today in India, they still have this caste system, although it is illegal. And these Brahmins, they are proud and they claim to be the religious leader and so on. And that they are the highest class. And others are below them. So it is a class system. Only the Brahmin is the fair class. These are the northern Indians, the fair skin, they look down on the dark skin, locals especially. Any other class is dark. Only Brahmins are pure, not the non-Brahmins. Pure in a ritual sense, they perform all kinds of rituals, which others are not allowed to perform. Only Brahmins are Brahma's own sons. Okay, they have created a story, a religious story, that their God is big, mighty God, or the first primordial man, and from his mouth or from his chest they are born. The Brahmins come from their God, capital G, God's mouth. Okay, so they have this story. They claim they come from God's mouth, so that's why they are supposed to be praying for all the others, and the others are supposed to give donations and support them. Born from his mouth, born of Brahma himself, created by Brahma, the heirs of Brahma. So Brahma is the high God. In the Buddhist time, that was the idea. Okay? So these Brahmins scolded these two friends. 3.6. You have left the best class and gone over to an inferior class. Baldheads, wretched ascetics, dark menials, born of our kinsmen's Brahma's feet. So this is a very strong language. Eh? So why did you become a monk? You become an outcast. Eh? These monks they're born from our God's feet. So they have this idea that there are four castes or four classes. The Brahmins are born from God's mouth, and then the Kshatriyas or the nobles, the warriors are born from God's arms, so they're supposed to protect these Brahmins. And then from the hips of this God Brahma are the merchant class, the Vesas, and they're supposed to make money and enrich the other two upper classes. And then the last one are the Shudras, the menial workers. They're born from the feet of their God, right? So this is a very clever idea. Religion is used to mislead people, right? Even you find a lot of this kind of idea in religion, and nowadays we are very careful not to be tricked by such stories, in other words. Right? They're meant as stories, but they're taken in the literal sense. And this is especially bad because it causes a lot of social injustice. So the scolding continues. The Brahmins continue and say, it is no good, unseemly, that you have left the best class and gone over to an inferior class, right? Bald heads and so on, talking bad about the monks. So the Vāseṭṭha, probably Vāseṭṭha is the one who is speaking on behalf of the two. So he says, that is how, Bhante, the Brahmins revile and abuse us roundly in a downright personal way, right? So this is the thesis, this is a starting story. Eh? So the Buddha replies, the Buddha said, surely, Vāseṭṭha, the Brahmins have forgotten the past. Right, so this is the Buddha's reply. It is based on this short line. You have the rest of this long sutta. The Buddha tells this long story, which is going to start in a while. It says the Brahmins have forgotten the past. And what is this past they have forgotten? So, but first the Buddha is very sharp in his response. He's very, very clever, very wise. The Buddha says, surely, Vāseṭṭha, the Brahmins have forgotten the past. You can also translate that have forgotten the ancients. The Purana can also translate the ancients. When they say only Brahmins are the best class, highest class, and others are outcasts and so on. So everything's repeated there. So now the Buddha's reply, 4.5. Indeed, Vāseṭṭha, we see Brahminis. Brahmini is the Brahmin's wife. We see Brahminis, wife of Brahmins, having seasons or periods, becoming pregnant, giving birth, giving suck, giving milk to the babies. Yet these yoni-born or womb-born Brahmins say thus, the Brahmin are born from the God and so on and so forth. Right? So here you see this first sign of humor. The Buddha said, these Brahmins, they have forgotten something. They say they are born from God's mouth, but we know, like everyone else, they are born from their mothers, right? From the womb. Okay? Now, yoni-born, I've used the word yoni here because it's quite difficult to translate into English without, I mean, it's quite very sensitive. The yoni refers to the whole apparatus, whole organic system of a woman for birth, childbirth. Okay, so basically the Buddha is saying, you see these Brahmins born just like any other humans, yet they claim they are born from God's mouth. So look at 4.7. So 4.7, the Buddha says, these Brahmins misrepresent Brahma. They talk against their own God. They tell lies and earn much demerit. Okay, so here you have to read this with a smile, okay? Not with hatred or anger. The Buddha is not saying something after hatred. You see him almost like with a gentle smile as he says this very calmly. So he's saying these Brahmins, they're talking in opposite terms. They're born just like any other from a mother, and here they're saying they're born from Brahma's mouth. The commentary is a bit less, what should I say, they're more direct. They say, wow, if this Brahmins talk in this way, then this Brahma's mouth is the yoni. So that is a remark mentioned in the commentary, which is quite funny, if you like. All right, so there the Buddha begins, and the Buddha begins to go on a more serious note about the four classes. Section 5. There are, Vāseṭṭha, these four classes. Now, Vāseṭṭha already knows the four classes, so that the Buddha purposely repeats this for our benefit, like you and I, who are new to this idea. So the Buddha says that there are, Vāseṭṭha, these four classes, or varna in Sanskrit, it means actually color. So they divide up according to color. The kshatriyas, right? So these are the warriors, the Brahmins are the priests, Vaishyas are the merchants, and the Shudras are the workers. Now, usually, the Brahmins will come first. But here in the suttas, we always see the kshatriyas mentioned first. The kshatriyas are warriors. Now, in Malay, it's kasatriya. Okay, kasatriya. So this is the word. It means a noble, a warrior. So in the suttas, we have kshatriya invariably mentioned first. It's because the Buddha belongs to the kshatriya class. And socially, in central India, the central Gangetic plain, where the Buddha lived and taught the Dharma, you have the kshatriyas, they became very powerful and dominant. They were like the rising class, they had land, they had money. The Brahmins were losing their influence. In fact, the Brahmins were slowly being pushed away to the far west. So you see Buddhism flourishing in the central Gangetic plain in India. Okay? So you have Kshatriya mentioned first, the Brahmins, the Vaisyas, and the Shudras, the warriors, the priests, the merchant, and the worker classes. Vāseṭṭha. Here, a certain Kshatriya, member of the warrior class, kills, destroys life, takes the not given, commits sexual misconduct, speaks false speech, speaks divisive speech, utters harsh speech, speaks useless talk, is covetous, malevolent, holds false views. Right? So here the Buddha is saying, okay, even if a noble were to conduct himself wrongly in these 10 kinds of unwholesome karma, right? I mean, even the Kshatriyas also do this, the Buddha says. So you notice there are 3 lines here. In the first line, you have the 3 actions, first 3 precepts broken through the body. In the second line, you see there are 4 kinds of wrong speeches. These are the wrong karma of speech, and the last one is 3 of the mind. So 3, we have 3, 4, 3. No? So here the Buddha is going to the moral aspects. Thus, Vāseṭṭha, such states are unwholesome and regarded as unwholesome, blameworthy and regarded as blameworthy, to be avoided and regarded to be avoided, ways unbecoming of a noble one and regarded as ways unbecoming of a noble one, black with black results, and blamed by the wise are found among some Kshatriyas. So here the Buddha is making a statement. He says, even Kshatriyas sometimes commit bad karma. And these are known to all. These are bad and is universally accepted so. It's blameworthy, universally accepted so, to be avoided, not proper. Right? So in other words, these are universal values. Black with black results. This is bad karma. Okay? And the wise, those who are who know things, or compassionate, who are social leaders, cultured people, they blame those who break such precepts. The Kshatriyas commit these wrong things too. Then the Buddha goes on to the second of the 4 classes. Notice the Buddha first mentioned the 4 classes. Then he says they all, in moral terms, they are the same. Okay, the Brahmin also breaks these 10 causes of bad karma, right? Killing, stealing, and so on. And these are all universally accepted moral codes. You see, the Brahmins also breaking all these 10 precepts, or 10 committing these 10 bad karma. And then the Buddha goes on further down. The Buddha goes on to talk about the Vaishyas. So the Vaishyas also, the people of the merchant class also kill, and take the not given, sexual misconduct, and so on. And these are wrong things which are universally accepted. So it's not proper action. The Vaishyas also do this. And in section 4, the Buddha says the Shudras also do this, right? So here the Buddha is trying to show the universality of moral conduct. That no matter what class you belong to, whether it's the highest or lowest class, you still behave under the same moral conduct, moral code that are universally accepted. No one is special when it comes to behaving badly. If you break the precepts, you are bad. It doesn't mean you are a Kshatriya, you can break precepts, not like that. So there's something higher than the 4 classes, in other words, the moral code. Okay? Then the Buddha goes on to the positive side, second section, right? The next section, refraining from the 10 unwholesome causes of action. So here, section 6, the Buddha says, Vāseṭṭha, here a certain Kshatriya refrains from killing, refrains from taking the not given, refrains from sexual misconduct, Okay, so here you notice I have indented the 3, 4, 3 again, so for easy reading. Okay, so the first 3 are action of the body, next 4 are action of speech, refrains from false speech, refrains from divisive speech, refrains from harsh speech, refrains from useless talk. Then the last 3 of the mind, karma of the mind, refrains from covetousness, desiring what other people have, refrains from malevolence, bad-heartedness, ill will, refrains from false views, wrong views, right? So all these 10 actions, the some kshatriyas also refrain from this. They live a good moral life. And these ends, as such, such states that are wholesome and regarded as wholesome, praiseworthy, regarded as praiseworthy, to be practiced and regarded as to be practiced, ways becoming of a noble one and regarded as ways becoming of a noble one, bright with bright result and praised by the wise, are found among the kshatriyas. So here the Buddha is saying you can also see that kshatriyas also have a moral behavior. They behave well. So there are good kshatriyas. And then, well, you already guessed that the Buddha talked the same thing of the other 3 classes, right? So there are also brahmins who do keep all these 10 karmic actions good. They live wholesome lives. So to do the Vaisyas, the merchants, and also the Shudras. So here, you are good by your action, right? Anyone, no matter what class you are, including the outcasts also, when they keep to the precepts, they keep all these 10 wholesome causes of good karma, wholesome, they are good. It's not because of their class, it's their action that makes them so. This is in fact the key idea in another sutta called the Vāseṭṭha Sutta, which was taught to Vāseṭṭha earlier on. So here the Buddha continues to talk about moral conduct is higher than class, than social status. Section 7. Now Vāseṭṭha, since both of these dark and bright qualities, right? Dark meaning bad, those with bad karma, bright is those with good karma, blamed by the wise and praised by the wise respectively, are found mixed up amongst these 4 classes. The wise do not accept the claim by the brahmins that the brahmins are the best class, others are inferior, the brahmins are fair, and others are dark, the brahmins are pure, others are not. They are born from God's mouth, and so on and so forth. Right? So here, the Buddha says you can see all members of all the 4 classes. Some do good, some do bad. Their karma is mixed up. So how can anyone say they are the purest of everyone else? Why is that? 7.3. Why is that? Because, Vāseṭṭha, anyone from any of the 4 classes who becomes a monk, an arhat, with mental influxes destroyed. Here, mental influxes meaning mental impurities, like desire and so on, craving. He has lived a holy life, done what is to be done, laid down, there's an L missing, should be laid down the burden, reached his own goal, destroyed the fetters of being, in other words, broken all the fetters that hold us back in this world, freed through their own direct knowledge. They see reality directly with their own minds. He is justly, not unjustly proclaimed the foremost, Agga. So there you are, first mentioned, Agga. This is the key idea. So here the Buddha says anyone from any of these 4 classes, or even unclassed like the outcast, not mentioned here, anyone from these 4 classes, if they practice properly, they meditate, they keep to the Vinaya, and they become arhats, they are the highest. It doesn't matter what class you are from. So this talk about religious freedom, this is an amazing statement that the Buddha is making, is that anyone can attain this high level of spiritual attainment, the Arhat stage. Why? 7.4. The Buddha further explains, for Vāseṭṭha, the Dharma or the Dhamma is the best. Settha means foremost, supreme, for people in this life, for this generation, and for those to come too. So here, okay, well, this word Dharma is very big. It's got broad meaning. We cannot just translate teaching or even truth, right? Dharma also means mental state and so on. In fact, the word Dharma has got the broadest sense of various meanings and senses. It's like the English word thing, T-H-I-N-G. So I've left it like that, the Dharma. I normally use the anglicized version. Dharma is anglicized. You can see this in the Webster Dictionary, in the Oxford Dictionary. The thing is that in India today, I was told that the Brahmins, they still bully the lower caste. They say, oh, you know, you still follow our Dharma, you know, so this is the word. But then they're just claiming that like they have a copyright to the word Dharma. So just to avoid this embarrassment, I put in square brackets Dhamma, the Pali word. So if you find you don't want to use Dharma with the R, which is reflective of the Brahmins usage today, you can use the Dhamma. But we have no problems here, of course. To us, the Dharma is simply an English word, which is acceptable. This Dharma here can mean anything from universal principle. It can mean teaching, it can mean truth, it can mean social norm, social standards, right? So it has this broad range of meanings. The Buddha is saying this is the truth, if you like. This is the highest standards of human behavior, the Dharma. Anyone would agree with this. If you really practice, you are free from suffering, you become an arhat, you are the foremost. All right, so the Buddha's teaching using direct Dharma stops here for a while. Now the Buddha changes his tone to speak in story form from section 8 onwards right to the end. So now you look at section 8. Vāseṭṭha, by this metaphor or exposition, pariyaya, it should be understood that the Dharma is the best for this generation and those to come too. Right? So this word pariyaya is quite a difficult word to translate. In fact, I'm going to do an essay on it later on. So I've translated here as metaphor because the Buddha is going to tell us a long story to explain the universality and uniqueness and the supremacy of this universal good quality, if you like, or very simply, universal values. First, the Buddha begins with something which is quite well known at that time. He talks about how King Pasenadi respects the Sakyas. Okay? Vāseṭṭha, King Pasenadi of Kosala knows the recluse Gotama, the peerless, is one who has gone forth from the Sakya clan. Now, King Pasenadi of Kosala, which is the biggest kingdom at that time, is a close friend and devotee of the Buddha. They're about the same age, actually. But he knows the Buddha from even when the Buddha was very young. So they become close friends. And he also has like annexed the Sakyas peacefully, right? So he is very powerful, so he's like taken over the Sakya kingdom, and then the Sakyas are his vessels. Right? So 8.2, now Vāseṭṭha, the Sakyas are vessels of King Pasenadi of Kosala. They pay tribute. In other words, they pay taxes and so on to the king, taking the king as their overlord, if you like. Now, the Sakyas are republicans. They do not have a king like Pasenadi, although they are called Rajas. The Sakyas are tribal in the sense they take turns to lead their tribe, their community. And they often work as a confederation, like a committee, if you like. Like our country, you have a parliament, something like that. So they have this group of chiefs who run things. So they are republicans, but Pasenadi is king. So they're under the power of King Pasenadi, but Pasenadi respects the Sakya very much, partly because of the Buddha also. And so the Sakyas, Vāseṭṭha, offer humble service to King Pasenadi of Kosala. Rising from their seat, they salute him, they pay him homage with palms together, Anjali, lotus palms. They offer him fitting service. And Vāseṭṭha, just as the Sakya offer all these respectful services, in the same way, Vāseṭṭha, does King Pasenadi of Kosala offer the Tathagata humble service. Rising from his seat, he salutes him, he pays homage. He pays him homage with palms together. He offers him fitting service, to the Tathagata, thinking, now the recluse Gotama is well born, I am ill born. The recluse Gotama is strong, I am weak. The recluse Gotama is pleasant, I am ugly. The recluse Gotama is of great influence, I am of little influence. So here we have a kind of we are looking into the king's mind, so to speak. So this is where the Buddha tells us a bit of the king's nature. The King Pasenadi is a very devoted follower of the Buddha. He respects the Buddha in a very personal way, and he often confides in the Buddha's difficulties and so on. So here we see how he looks up to the Buddha. And because of that, he treats the Sakyas well also. So we have this very interesting situation here. So what the Buddha is trying to say is, why does this happen? This is because the king respects certain universal values. This is called the Dharma, okay? The Dharma as universal values. That when you respect the people, they respect you. When you respect those who are worthy of respect, people respect you even more, right? So the Buddha says, 8.6, now it is because of honoring the Dharma, universal values, respecting the Dharma, revering the Dharma, worshipping the Dharma, that King Pasenadi of Kosala offers humble service to the Tathagata, rising, salutes him, pays him homage with palms together, offers fitting service to the Tathagata, right? So by this metaphor, notice this word again, this metaphor, Vāseṭṭha, it should be understood that the Dharma is the best for the people in this life and in the next. So here the Buddha is talking about society. When you have this kind of universal value, society is stable, productive, peaceful, prosperous. Okay? Then the Buddha builds up this idea on a bigger scale. Section 9. Vāseṭṭha, both of you. Now, this line is very special because when the Buddha calls his word Vāseṭṭha, it is normal, a dual vocative. Dual vocative, that means Vāseṭṭha and Bhāra dvāja. Because here the Buddha is talking about anyone who becomes a monk, right? So we have to correct this. You have to delete this, both of you. Instead, you write the you all, okay? Vāseṭṭha, you all. So now the Buddha is addressing all the monks. Vāseṭṭha, you all. Vāseṭṭha and Bhāra dvāja and you all. Though of various birth, various names, various clans, various families, have gone forth from the household into homelessness. You notice from the context itself, we know very clearly the Buddha is addressing everyone, not just these two friends. If you are asked who you are, You should reply, we are recluses, sons of the Sakya. Right, so see here again, the Buddha is, it's, if you like, you can say the Buddha is saying this almost with tongue-in-cheek, if you like. Again, very subtle humor here. So you are sons of the Sakya, right? So he's using the same idea, same metaphor, this way the Brahmins are using this God idea, sons of God, you know. He said, you are sons of the Sakya. You are my sons, okay? Spiritual sons. Then the Buddha even broadens this wonderful idea, 9.3. Vāseṭṭha, he whose faith in the Tathagata is firm, well-rooted, established, steadfast, unshakable, or immovable by any recluse or Brahmin, any Deva or Mara, can truly say, we are sons of Sakya also. Okay. In fact, the full list of titles you can claim: I am a son of the Blessed One, an offspring born from his mouth, born of the Dharma, created by the Dharma, heir to the Dharma. Why is that? Because Vāseṭṭha, this designates the Tathagata, the body of the Dharma, or the body of Brahma, or one who is Dharma, or one who is Brahma. Okay, now this is a little deep. Okay, so let me just explain this, then we take a break. All right. So here the Buddha is saying, anyone, including you and I, right now, we can say, if you have faith in the Buddha, we can say, I am the Buddha's son. Right? I'm born from his mouth. Why? Because I listen to his teaching. I'm born of the Dharma. I study the suttas, I practice it. Created by the Dharma because I follow it. Heir to the Dharma. So if you seriously practice, you have peace of mind, you will become a stream winner. You will gain the path. That is our legacy. Right? Why is that so? I said, because the Buddha is no more a person like us. The Buddha is this. He is the embodiment of the Dharma. He has become Dharma. So the body of the Dharma. He who sees Dharma sees me, the Buddha declares, right? So because the Buddha is awakened, he has no more defilements, no more desires like an ordinary person. He's called body of the Dharma. He's called body of Brahma because he embodies the four Brahma Viharas, the four divine abodes: loving kindness, compassion, joy, and peace or equanimity. One who is the Dharma. So as the Buddha teaches, he also practices. He's the Dharma. One who is Brahma, he has all these wonderful qualities. Brahma also means perfect, also means highest good, and so on. So it's Brahma in that sense in our lives. So here the teaching, social teaching, and Dharma teaching ends. Then the Buddha starts. What is the core of this Aggañña Sutta about the re-evolution of the universe, which we'll go to after this break. I'm going to read paragraph 10. So now the Buddha begins his story of the re-evolution of the universe, or society, and so on. This is the big metaphor. The Buddha is speaking here. There comes a time, Vāseṭṭha, sooner or later, after a long period of time, when this world contracts or dissolves. When the world is contracting or dissolving, beings mostly arise in abhasara, the streaming radiance, the Brahma world, right? So here the Buddha is talking about the Buddhist idea of the cycle, of the cosmic cycle. Now, if you look at the way the early Buddhists talk about the universe, it's amazing for their time, 2,500 years ago. Now, the Indians, of course, believe in a flat earth, but it's never mentioned in the suttas. Instead, when you look at the stories in the suttas, the Buddha talks about a pulsating universe, a universe which expands, stabilizes, contracts, stabilizes. So when it's contracting, in other words, it's reaching a dissolution, then it goes into a sort of a big crunch, and then nothing exists. So the Buddha said, okay, the world is contracting, the universe is being destroyed, then the beings are reborn in the highest of the second jhana world, Abhasara. Okay, so this is just this is one version that there are. This is when the world is destroyed by water, if you're not mistaken. Then when the world is destroyed by fire, by wind, you have bigger destruction. So here the Buddha is basically talking about the world now is re-evolving, right? Then 10.2. When the world is contracting or dissolving, beings mostly arise in the Vāseṭṭha streaming radiance Brahma world. There they dwell mind-made, feeding on joy or zest, self-luminous, moving about through the air, glorious, and they stay like that for a very long time. So here we have this idea of how the ancient Indians view these devas. In many ways, this is how, you know, in modern science, space science fiction, you see the aliens, you see the aliens are depicted in similar way. Okay, so now this universe re-evolves. 10.4. There comes a time, sooner or later, after a long period of time, when this world expands or re-evolves. When the world is expanding, beings having fallen from the Abhasara world come to this world, come to our universe. And there they dwell mind-made, feeding on joy, self-luminous, moving about through the air, here air meaning through space, glorious, and they stay like that for a long time, for a very long time. So here imagine, okay, there's no lights, just these devas, they have their own light, so that they are kind of reborn in this newly evolved universe. Then the Buddha goes on. 11. During that period of time, Vāseṭṭha, there was nothing but just one mass of water. Again, don't take water literally here, it means liquid. And all was darkness, blinding darkness. It's the newly evolved physical universe, there's no light. Neither moon nor sun appeared, neither constellation nor stars appeared. There was neither night nor day, neither months nor fortnights, neither seasons nor years, neither male nor female. Beings were reckoned simply as beings. Right? So this is the early universe. And sooner or later, Vāseṭṭha, after a very long period of time, sweet earth spread itself evenly over the waters where those beings were. Or if you like, some kind of protein materials arose on the surface of the world. It looked just like the skim of cream that forms over hot milk as it cools. It was colorful, fragrant, tasty like ghee. This is oil Indian used for cooking, of the color like that of butter, and tasting like pure wild honey. Right? So in other words, these are it's like food. It's nutritious materials. Okay? 12. Then Vāseṭṭha, a certain being, greedy in nature, said, I say, what can this be? And tasted the sweet earth with his finger. All right, here one of the devas, greedy by nature, look at this and say, what can this be? It's curious. So he tasted with the finger. So this is what the sutta says, this is what the Buddha says, tasted the sweet earth with his finger. Now you see square brackets, there are V4:198. Right? In other words, if you look at the Vinaya, V is Vinaya, volume 4, page 198, the Pali Text Society edition, you will see there's a rule there which says that monks are not allowed to taste food with the finger. Right? So here you see another humorous kind of approach where the Buddha is telling a story. These devas, they are not observing any of the monastic rules. They tasted this nutritious material with the finger. Having tasted the sweet earth on his finger, he was suffused with the taste. So wow, this zing or this oomph filled the whole body of this being, this deva, and craving came over him. Then Vāseṭṭha, certain other beings following him, sat upon the sweet earth and tasted the sweet earth with their fingers too. Having tasted the sweet earth on their fingers, they were suffused with the taste, and craving came upon them too. Right? So we tend to follow the crowd. So the devas also the same here. Then Vāseṭṭha, these beings began feeding on the sweet earth, making lumps of it, large morsels of it. So here again, you see that there's a Vinaya mention. Monks are not supposed to make big lumps of food and eating it that way. They're supposed to make small lumps, just enough to go into the mouth. And Vāseṭṭha, on account of those beings making lumps of sweet earth and feeding on it, these beings lost or destroyed their self-luminance. In other words, when they begin to eat material food, they became more solid, so their brightness slowly began to fade. Before this, they were feeding on joy, but now as they started feeding on material food, they begin to lose their luminance, their brightness. With the loss of their luminance, self-luminance, the sun and the moon appeared. With the appearance of the sun and the moon, the stars and constellations appeared. With the appearance of the stars and constellations, night and day appeared. With the appearance of night and day, months and fortnights appeared. With the appearance of months and fortnights, the year and its seasons appeared. To that extent, Vāseṭṭha, the world evolved or expanded. Right? Now here, remember, this is a humorous story, a metaphor. Right? The first lines, with the loss of their luminance, self-luminance, the sun and moon appeared. It's as if because they lost their brightness, the sun and moon appeared. That's not the case here. It's a humorous story. It's a coincidence here. You see things moving slowly, so as they begin to lose their brightness, the sun and moon also evolve. All right. Now, 13. Now, Vāseṭṭha, these beings continued for a very long time feeding on this sweet earth as their food and nourishment. Vāseṭṭha, just as these beings continued for a very long time feeding on this sweet earth as their food and nourishment, so did those beings' bodies become coarser. And among themselves, they noticed differences in their looks. Some beings were good-looking, others ugly, because they have physical form now, so they can see each other in a different way. Then the good-looking ones despised the ugly ones, saying, "We are better looking than they are. They are uglier than we are." Okay. And through their being proud and arrogant by nature, due to their beauty, the sweet earth disappeared. When the sweet earth disappeared, they assembled and lamented, "Oh, the taste, oh, the taste." Nowadays, when people get a taste of something good, they say, "Oh, the taste, oh, the taste." They are merely recalling a primordial norm without knowing its meaning. So here again, you see the Buddha's really profound humor. He says nowadays you hear people saying, "Wow, this is nice taste," huh? Or "Sedap," as in Malay. They are actually just repeating this old response when these devas lost the wonderful food that was there naturally there for them, right? Then next, the Buddha talks about the rise of vegetation. 14. And then Vāseṭṭha, when the sweet earth had disappeared for those beings, earth fat or fragrant earth arose. Now this word is quite difficult to translate. Bhumi papattaka. So it's like a thin layer of something nutritious, like a fungus. But here the sutta says it grew like mushroom. It was endowed with color, endowed with fragrance, endowed with taste, just like ghee, just like butter. So was its color. Just like pure wild honey was its taste. Okay, this is this repetition. Notice section 12.2. It was first mentioned there, basically saying it has good taste. It is nutritious. It's like food. Then Vāseṭṭha, those beings continued for a very long time, feeding on the earth fat as the food, as their nourishment. Okay? And I've used this translation, earth fat, following the Tibetan translation. The Tibetans use sazak, okay, meaning earth fat. So I thought that's the closest I have to a translation. And then it describes something nutritious, something from the earth. 14.4. Vāseṭṭha, even as those beings continued for a very long time feeding on the earth fat as their food, as their nourishment, even so their bodies became coarser still. And amongst them they noticed even greater differences in their looks. So some beings were good looking and others ugly. Then the good looking ones despise the ugly ones, saying we're better looking than they are, they're uglier than we are. True, they are being arrogant about their complexion, being conceited, arrogant by nature, due to their beauty, the earth fat disappeared. Now notice here again, the Buddha is being very humorous. He's also hinting at the Brahmins who tend to be arrogant about their looks. He say, well, you have to be careful, you will lose these looks also. You know? So here the Buddha is saying, he's talking about something happens over a long time, millions of years in fact. And here you have these beings who are feeding on this nutritious, natural things around them. They became more and more solid, so to speak. And then now this earth fat disappeared. So what happened next? 14.7. When the earth fat disappeared, a kind of creeper appeared. They grew like convolvulus. Now, convolvulus, as you all know, is kangkong. So here, notice what's going on here. Notice, if you look back the sutta, first the Buddha says that there is this earth, like protein particles floating on the water. And then you have these fungus-like materials, and things became more advanced, evolved, right? So you have the earth fat. And now you have creepers. Creepers are very primitive plants. They grew like convolvulus. Kangkong, as you know, grows in water too. It was endowed with color, with fragrance, taste. It's very nice, very fragrant, it's tasty. 15. Then Vāseṭṭha, the beings sat upon the creeper and ate it. And Vāseṭṭha, these beings continued for a very long time, feeding on this creeper as their food and nourishment. And then the situation repeats itself. So as they ate more of this material food, their body became even more solid, and they begin to notice even greater differences among themselves. Some are good looking, some are ugly, and they started despising each other. Notice here again, the Buddha is hinting at the Brahmins again, say, oh, these Brahmins look down on others because of their looks. But here we have these devas doing the same thing. And because they were proud and arrogant by nature, due to their beauty, the creeper disappeared. And they assembled and lamented, alas, what was ours? Alas, our creeper, Badalatha, is lost. Nowadays, when people are touched by some hardship, they say, alas, what was ours? Alas, loss was what ours, is what was ours. Right? So this is they're merely reacting the same way as our early ancestors also reacted. They are merely resorting to the primordial norm of the ancients without knowing its meaning. Right? Then what happens next? Section 16. So you see here this vegetative evolution from the creeping plants. Now you have plants growing upright. Then Vāseṭṭha, when the creeper had disappeared, rice appeared uncultivated in the open spaces, ripening by itself. It was without powder, without husk, fragrant and clean grain, in other words, ready for food. So here the Buddha is describing this all, they just have to, just pluck the rice and eat it like that, just like seeds. They all ripen, they can be eaten just like that. So it's a very natural, happy kind of life compared to today's life. 16.2. Whatever they gathered in the evening for their dinner, in the morning had grown back ripe again. It's like whenever they pluck It just grows. It's a fast-growing plant. Whatever they gathered in the morning for their breakfast, in the evening had grown back right again. They knew no harvesting. There was no need to cut them. They just plucked and ate like that. So it's like paradise on earth, if you like. Okay, so there is a little break here. Then Buddha Ghosha added in an extra episode. Buddha Ghosha in the Visuddhimagga says, oh, then vessels appear. Of course, we should not imagine that they appeared just like that. Appeared here meaning those beings started inventing all these various plates and bowls and so on. They put the rice into the vessel and they placed it on top of stones. A flame appeared spontaneously and cooked it. Right, so they discovered fire, by knocking flints together. The cooked rice resembled jasmine flowers. It had need of neither sauces nor curries, since it would taste as whatever flavor they desired. Remember, these beings are still like devas, so they just think it and they get that taste. Or another way of putting it is their taste is very primitive, so they could easily just take it like that. As soon as they ate this gross food, urine and excrement appeared in them. Then wounds broke open in them to let out the urine and excrement. Now, this is extra story added by Buddha Ghosha. Okay, so we don't have to really consider this. It kind of actually doesn't fit very well in the smooth story the Buddha is telling. Okay. Now, anyway, after this, something new is going to happen, but we're not going to that. We will go into this next week. This is already halfway to the sutta, how sexuality arose. And this is again a very humorous, very interesting observation the Buddha made. So for today, I will stop here to